want to tell you about a moment, not a dramatic moment, just a quiet, random, thinking to yourself moment where you have a feeling of finally recognizing yourself. And that's what today's episode's all about. Welcome to the Reinvention Edit, the podcast for women who are ready to stop living in the old version of themselves and start showing up as who they are truly becoming. I'm your host, Claire Silk, confidence, identity and style coach, and someone who knows firsthand what it feels like to be in the messy middle between where I was and who I was becoming in my next chapter of life. Each week we explore identity, confidence and personal style, not as separate conversations but as one, because when those three things align, everything changes. Welcome back to the Reinvention Edit. So I've talked a lot recently about the gap. The gap is the distance between who you are on the inside and how you show up on the outside. I've spoken about where it comes from, why it matters, and what you can do about it. And today I want to talk about what is on the other side of that gap and what it feels like when you do close it. Because I've actually realised that in a lot of my content and podcasts and things, I talk a lot about the problem, the self-doubt, the wardrobe paralysis, and I give you things you can do about it, which I know a lot of you find really helpful. But I don't talk much about the destination and about what alignment actually feels like when you get there, when you've closed the gap. You can feel it in your body and your life when you do get there. And I thought it was about time it had some airtime, this destination that we're going to, because it matters. After all, it is what we're aiming for. And I want to talk about it in a real, specific, grounded way of something that is genuinely possible for you. Something that women I've worked with have found, something that I myself have found too. So today's episode is a little bit different. It's more of a story and less of a framework, more kind of felt than taught. And I hope that by the end of it, you'll have a clear, vivid sense of what you're actually working towards. So alignment, when you're not there, can feel very abstract. We know that when your inner confidence and your outer expression are aligned, that is, when who you are on your inside is accurately and authentically reflected by how you show up on the outside, something changes. And it's not just one thing either, it's a whole cluster of things, all happening at once. It's a ripple effect. A lot of women describe their first noticing of this as easy, a kind of light feeling, not effortless, because they've worked hard to get there, but a kind of internal ease. Getting dressed in the morning stops being a negotiation and a challenge, and they open their wardrobe and they know what they're reaching for, because everything in there feels like a true representation of them, who they are. And when you get to the other side of the gap, you know yourself well enough to know what feeling like you means and what it looks like. So decisions come more naturally because you have a clearer sense of what matters to you and what doesn't. All the kind of outside peripheral noise quietens and that second guessing loses its grip. You trust yourself more. Not maybe 100% all the time, but more than before. Enough to give you the confidence. And the second thing is recognition. That morning mirror moment when you can look at yourself and think, yes, this is me, and feel pleased and complete. It sounds really simple, but it's not a small thing. For many women I work with, there is a long period of looking in the mirror and feeling a disconnect. Seeing someone who looks fine and appropriate and put together, but doesn't quite look like a version of themselves they know on the inside. And when that disconnect closes, you can look in the mirror and genuinely recognise yourself. And it's settling. Something that had been quietly, constantly effortful becomes restful and peaceful. You stop monitoring, adjusting and performing, and you just be you. And the third thing is presence. Women who have done this work describe walking into rooms differently, not loudly, actually, in fact, often more quietly, with less need to explain themselves or justify their choices. They feel comfortable and confident. They don't need to manage how they're being perceived, and they don't feel anxious about it. There's a quality when a woman fully inhabits herself, a kind of stillness and a peace, a groundedness, a quiet authority that has nothing to do with status or volume, and everything to do with being entirely present in her own body. You can feel it and other people can feel it too. You might notice these women as being magnetic, composed and confident without knowing why. The sort of person that you just want to be around. You like their energy. You want to listen to them, follow their lead. And the woman herself knows that she's not performing any of it. She's just finally fully there, fully present. And fourth, for a lot of women, alignment feels a bit like permission. And I think that's reflective of our societal expectations. A permission to be who you actually are and to want what you actually do want. And not to be cliched, but to take up the space that you do deserve. It sounds very idealistic. But as women, we've existed in a world where these things don't come naturally, and so we resist them. And this alignment often gives women the permission they need to do these things that are actually quite natural. And so they're not the version of themselves that have been shaped by other people's expectations, or the version that learned to be smaller or safer or more palatable. It's the actual version of themselves. The one who has opinions and preferences and a way of seeing the world that is entirely and gloriously hers. A client I finished working with recently described it as coming home to herself, and I think that is actually a very accurate description. Coming home to yourself. So how do we make this happen? How do you get from the gap to alignment? Well, I've managed to narrow this down to 3 conditions that when they come together, we can see alignment and feel alignment emerge. Firstly, self-knowledge. Genuine, specific, and current self-knowledge. Not of who you were or who you are aspiring to be, but who you are right now in this moment of your life. It sounds really obvious, but it's actually harder than it sounds, particularly for women who've spent years adapting to various workplaces, relationships, social contexts, all in ways that gradually separated them from their own preferences and instincts. Self-knowledge comes through asking different questions and trying to avoid thinking, what should I wear? We're so used to asking, what should I wear for that? But maybe you need to be considering, who am I dressing? Within the context, of course. And rather than what is appropriate, try asking, what feels like me? And rather than what will people think, try, what do I actually want to say with my clothes? It's a really subtle shift to dressing for you and who you are in various contexts, but all different versions of you. And you can stay true to yourself, whether you're at a wedding, in an office, in the evening in your comfies, in your gym gear. They're all different contexts and require different outfits, but they can all express you fully. And you can start to get a feel for this through my signature presence archetype quiz, understanding your natural style identity, the archetype that reflects who you are at your most authentic. And then when you have a language for who you are and you can articulate it, you make choices that align with that identity so much more naturally. The second condition is intentional expression. This is where the style work comes in, but we don't approach style as a set of rules or a performance, and it certainly isn't a fix for low self-worth. It is a genuine act of self-expression. When we work together, we think about what you want to communicate about who you are, and what do you want people to feel when they meet you before you've spoken, and how do you want to feel in your own body every day, no matter what you're doing. Even when you're working from home and nobody else is going to see you, it matters to you and how you feel. Intentional expression means making choices that answer those questions deliberately, consistently, and even when there are safe choices available, even when it's just a random Tuesday. Because every time you choose to express yourself intentionally, rather than by default, it is a small act of self-respect. And these small acts accumulate over weeks and months, and they add up and change something fundamental in how you experience yourself. And finally, the third condition is repetition and patience. Our subconscious thrives on repetition, especially when there's emotional attachment to it. And alignment doesn't just happen in a weekend. No coaching work happens very quickly. It's all a process, even when styling is involved. It doesn't just happen after one fabulous outfit or one powerful coaching session. It happens through the accumulation of many small moments of choosing yourself and dressing intentionally, of listening to your instinct and trusting your own judgment just a little bit more than you did yesterday. It's a process, and like all processes, it has a beginning, a middle, and eventually a moment when you can look in the mirror on a Monday morning and think, oh, there she is, and it's worth every step. When you do feel that alignment of your inner confidence and your outer expression aligning and being genuinely in sync, getting dressed in the morning takes minutes and not an hour of negotiation and trying on 3 different outfits and then feeling all hot and flustered and eventually going back to the first one only to feel less than happy in what you're wearing. You stop buying things that don't work. Your wardrobe gets smaller but feels more full because everything in it is truly you and you feel great in everything that you do have. You walk into rooms differently, with more presence, and people notice. You make decisions more cleanly. The second guess quietens and you trust yourself more, and has a knock-on effect of other people trusting you more. You gradually stop needing external validation to feel confident and looking outside of yourself for it. Of course, you still appreciate external validation. Everybody does, we're human. But you don't need it anymore. Your sense of self is no longer outsourced and dependent on whether somebody else confirms it or not. You start taking up the space you deserve in meetings, relationships, opportunities, and you feel consistently like yourself every day. And so to recap, alignment is the feeling of your inner confidence and your outer expression finally matching. It's real and specific, and it is perfectly possible for you too. It feels easy, like recognition and presence. And I have been told it feels like coming home to yourself, which actually I tend to agree with. It's a deep grounding. It comes from 3 conditions: genuine self-knowledge, intentional expression, and the patience to let both of those things accumulate into something that is lasting. And when it arrives, and it will arrive if you do the work, it changes not just how you look, it changes how you move, how you decide, how you take up space, how you experience your own life, and how other people experience you too. This isn't a permanent, finished version of you. It's not really a destination. It's the truest version of you now in this chapter of your life today. If this sounds like what you're moving towards, and the idea of coming home to yourself, which I think is a lovely phrase, feels like something you want, then the best place to start is with self-awareness. In all of my coaching, self-awareness is so important, and it's the beginning of any change. And the best place to start with that self-awareness is my signature presence archetype quiz. It's free and it takes 5 minutes. And at the time of recording, it's 33 degrees outside. So it's great to do in the shade with an ice cream. This will give you a personalized result that tells you your dominant presence archetype, your psychological patterns, and some suitable next steps. It's not a set of rules or a prescription. It serves as a compass, a starting point for the kind of intentional expression that leads over time to the alignment that we have been talking about today. Many women have taken it and found it to be quite true to how they feel, and they've liked being able to articulate why certain things feel right and others don't. You can find it at clairesilk.com, and I will also leave the link in the show notes. So take it today with an ice cream or a cup of tea, and then come and find me on Instagram at Silk Style and Confidence and tell me your result, or email me. I love hearing your thoughts on taking it and what you've discovered about yourself. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Reinvention Edit. If today's episode spoke to you, let me know, and please rate, review and subscribe. If you know a woman in your life who's in the middle of her own reinvention or evolution, please share this with her. It might be exactly what she needs to hear. You can find me on Instagram at Silk Style and Confidence and LinkedIn as Claire Silk. And if you're ready to work together, you can find out more on my website, clairesilk.com. Remember, confidence is built on the inside, style helps it shine.